Welcome back. In this lesson, we'll walk through the process of building a single VM lab environment on Azure using PowerShell and partly GitHub. Of course, you can exclude this GitHub portion, but that'll be useful and good for you to know how to implement GitHub into your working process. So this approach combines the power of Azure's cloud infrastructure with the efficiency of PowerShell automation and of course version control capabilities of GitHub. Here is an overview of what we'll cover. First, we'll set up a GitHub repository. You won't be doing this. I'll just create a GitHub repository on my GitHub site. Then we'll create PowerShell script for Azure resource management. We'll create Azure Connect script with several commands. Then we'll create new single VM script, and we'll create one more script to remove all the resources created with new single VM script. We'll take a look how to use Azure Cloud Shell. We'll access Cloud Shell, clone GitHub repo with the help of Cloud Shell, and navigate to script directory. We'll also deploy Azure resources with PowerShell. We'll execute this new single VM PowerShell script to create VM and associated resources. Then we'll remove the resources created with the previous script. We'll execute rm single VM script to remove all created resources. So the automation, that'll be full cycle automation, creating and removing resources. And I'll show you also how to manage scripts within GitHub, how to commit and push changes, use code spaces for editing, and update local repo in Cloud Shell. Now, before starting, some words about the scripts themselves. So the first script, new single VM PS script, which will create VM and resources, will be used to create a new VM along with necessary resources like a virtual network, network security group, and public IP address. So here we'll be using descriptive variable names, and of course, for you to know, always use descriptive variable names like resource group, VM name, and so on. For the simplicity, I'll be using RG for our new resource group. Also, we'll be including commands to explain each section of the script, and we'll use consistent formatting for readability. And of course, remember that when working with Azure in PowerShell, we use AZ module commands. For example, new AZ VM, remove AZ resource group, and so on. Now, as for Azure Cloud Shell, it's a convenient browser accessible environment for managing Azure resources, as you remember. And you access Cloud Shell by clicking the terminal icon in the Azure portal. As you remember, we choose PowerShell environment when prompted. And if you've chosen Bash environment as your first prompt, you can change it to PowerShell by typing pwsh. We'll also be using git clone command in Azure Cloud Shell. This command is used to clone a remote repository. So you type git clone and an address to the remote repository. For example, https://github.com/ the username of the creator of the repository and the repository name itself. Then when the remote repository is cloned to your Azure portal, you can navigate to this repository with cd command, for example, or set location command. It's a native PowerShell command. And of course, then you can execute the script as needed. You do this with point / and the name of the script. But in our case, we just start typing the name of the script and hit tab to autocomplete. So we'll be deploying resources with PowerShell. We'll execute this script will create, which will create resource group for us, virtual network, network security group, public IP address, network interface, virtual machine itself, all with Azure PowerShell module. We'll be using commands like new AZ resource group, new AZ virtual network, and new AZ VM to create these resources. And after we successfully implement and create all these resources, we can go ahead and start writing our script for the resources removal. And this script will remove all created resources and we'll name it RM single VM. That will use remove AZ commandlets, different commandlets, and that will ensure clean tear down of lab environment. So for us not to perform these actions manually. And finally, some words about GitHub. We'll be modifying our scripts in GitHub using code spaces. That's a very convenient tool, online tool, which allows you to create, modify, and save scripts, code files, and you can access all this data online from anywhere. So you can also collaborate with team members using GitHub. So as a result of this hands-on demonstration lessons, we'll have set up a GitHub repository to store our scripts. We'll have created PowerShell scripts for connecting to Azure, deploying resources and removing resources. We'll learn how to use Azure Cloud Shell as our execution environment, and we'll deploy Azure resources using our PowerShell script. We'll also remove Azure resources using another PowerShell script, and finally, we'll learn how to use GitHub and code spaces for version control and collaboration. With that said, let's get started. Let's continue building our lab, and as you remember, for now we've got several resource groups and one relates to our course, which is RG Lead AD Lab-WE. In previous demonstration, we learned how to delete the resource group when you enter this resource group, and you can press this delete resource group button. Now I'd like to demonstrate how to get the resource group and delete the resource group with the help of Cloud Shell. So I'll press Cloud Shell, maximize it, make the font larger like this. Now let's get our resource group with get AZ resource group command. So I'll type get -az resource group command. Hit enter and we'll get our resource group. Now let's say that we want to get all the resources within this resource group. For this we'll type, first I'll type clear and then I'll type get az, with one dash, resource, like this, and then the parameter, since I've missed U here, and then we'll need the parameter resource group, and we'll specify the resource group name. And by the way, I'll need to add this name here and provide the resource group name, which is RG-lead-AD lab-WE. Hit enter and we'll get all the resources within this resource group. As you can see, we've got lone DC1 IP, lone DC virtual machine, and so on. The disk attached to this lone DC. Now let's say that we want to remove this resource group with all the resources it contains. Let me clear the screen. I'll hit Ctrl L. For this we've got remove -az resource group, and we can autocomplete this command. I'll hit right arrow not to type all this information, So the command is remove AZ resource group. You provide the name of the resource group, and we've also got this what if parameter. Before actually removing the resource group, we can see what happens if we run such a command. So if I hit enter, as you can see, we'll get such a result. Performing the operation removing resource group on target RG lead AD lab WE. So now let's run this command. I'll remove this what if parameter. And by the way, I can use force if I'm completely sure I want to remove. So I'll run this command and that'll remove this resource group. That'll take some time. Every operation you perform with the help of PowerShell remotely or on Azure portal takes some time. So be ready to wait for some time for the operation to perform or to be completed. Now, when it's done, I offer you to create the same resource, namely Azure Virtual Machine, resource group for it, and all resources needed for this Azure Virtual Machine with the help of PowerShell. For us to be able to build our lab with the help of PowerShell in a matter of seconds or minutes later on. For example, if we want to build a lab containing 2 domain controllers in different Azure regions, for instance, we'll have 3 regions and 2 domains controller for each region, and we can perform this action with one go. But before we create such a script, let's start with the simpler version of this script, building only one virtual machine. And for this, I'll switch to my local integrated script environment or ISE for the convenience. Now I've switched to my local ISE and we can continue with creating the virtual machine and all the resources needed for it with PowerShell script with one go. So first, to start working on your local PowerShell session, you'll need to install a module. So let's create a command here, installing AZ module. And the command for it is install -module and name parameter, which is AZ. And you'll need to specify the repository for this module, which is PS Gallery. So you'll need to run this command to install all the necessary commands to work with Azure remotely. And when done, you'll need to connect to your Azure account with the following command. So we'll add a command here, connecting to Azure account, and the command is connect-az account. And when done, you could go ahead and check your subscription. So checking subscription, and we'll need one C here. And the command for it is get AZ subscription. In any case, if you don't want to work locally, you can run all the next commands will be performing here right inside Azure portal when working with Cloud Shell. So to create our resource, first let's create a new file for it. So we'll need to define some basic settings. Let's add a command, basic settings, and we'll need to create several variables containing the settings for our resources. So first variable will be resource group. I'll name it as an abbreviation RG, meaning resource group, and to declare a variable is the container containing some information. So to declare a variable, we need to use $character and equals character. It means that this particular character will hold the following settings. And here we'll put the name of our resource group in double quotes. So let me add 2 double quotes and the name, for instance, resource group dash lead dash AD lab dash created dash with dash PowerShell. So that will be the name of our resource group. Next, let's create a variable for our virtual machine. So that will be VM variable containing the following. Let's name it lead-dc dash, for example, PS created, PowerShell created. Next, we'll need to specify the location, as you remember. Let's name the variable $log, and that will contain our location, for instance, West Europe. Optionally, we can create a user. In my example, I can create my user. Let's name it actually my name with my name, and the password for this user will contain one more command, which is convert to secure string. It means that the password we provide here, for example, your secure password 123 exclamation point in double quotes. So this string will be converted to secure string so it can be used for automation. And next we'll add as plain text option and force parameter. Okay, so basic settings are done. Now we can go ahead and create public IP and our NIC. Again, we'll declare several variables here, like public IP variable, then virtual network variable, and NIC variable. Let's start with public IP that will contain the following information. To create a new public IP in Azure with a command, you'll need the following command: new AZ public IP address, and you'll need to provide a name for it. For example, that will contain our VM variable -pip, like so. Then you'll also need to provide, and by the way, I've missed dash here. So let me add it here. You'll need to provide resource group name, and that will contain our resource group, this one. So we'll copy and paste it here. So our public IP will be kept in this resource group, which contains this name, RG lead AD lab created with PowerShell, right? We'll also need to specify location. And again, we've got log variable for this. One more parameter we need to specify is a location method, and it will be static. And we need to specify sku, that will be a standard. Okay, this one-liner will create our public IP. Now let's move on to our VNet variable. And for this, we'll use such a command get -az virtual, not appliance, but network. It's the following parameter, resource group name, and we'll use our RG variable for this. And finally, NIC variable. Let's use new-az network interface command for this. And the name of our NIC will be taken from our VM's NIC. So we'll use a variable VM dash, and we'll add NIC to the value of VM variable. We'll also need to specify a resource group name where this NIC will be kept, and that'll be the value of our RG variable. Again, location, that'll be log variable, and by the way, you can select different location here. Then we'll need to specify subnet ID here. Again, we'll use our vnet variable dot subnets, and we'll refer to its first value, so we'll use 0, 0, we're starting with 0 here, dot ID. And finally, our public IP address ID will be $pip.id. So that's it for networking block. Now we'll need to create a rule for RDP connection. Remember that we need to connect to our virtual machine with RDP. So let's add a block's name, create NSG rule for RDP. And again, we'll need to create several variables here for this block. And the first one will be NSG rule RDP. Let's name it so. And for this, we'll use the command new. There is such a command, AZ network security group. Not group, sorry, but security rule config. And we'll need to add a name for it, for example, RDP. And of course, we'll need to add protocols. So there is a property for this protocol. And the protocol for RDP connection is TCP. And we'll need to add directions, inbound and outbound. So first we'll add direction inbound. And let's add priority for this direction, for example, 1000. And we can also add source port range. So we define from which IP addresses we can connect to this particular virtual machine. And I'll put asterisk for all sources, so we can connect from any IP address. And also let's define source address prefix, also asterisk for all source address prefixes. Now we'll add a destination address, destination port range, again, asterisk for all. Oops, sorry, not asterisk, but we need 3389. And as for destination address prefix, we'll add asterisk for all. And finally, we'll add access parameter allow. Now let's add another variable here, NSG itself, and that'll contain new again AZ network security group. And we'll place it to resource group again, and that'll be RG. Again, we'll need to place it in some location, and that'll be our lock variable. And we'll need to give it a name. That'll also take our VM's name. So we'll type $VM-NSG. And that'll use security rule or rules defined in NSG rule RDP, which we've defined in the previous line. And we'll attach this security rule to our NIC. So we'll use our NIC variable dot network security group value, which will equal to our NSG variable, the value of NSG variable, which we've defined in previous line. And finally, we'll use set-az network interface, which will contain network interface parameter. Oops, we don't need this equal. We'll need dash network interface with NIC variable value. Okay, we are done with creating network security group rule for our RDP block, and we are ready to create our virtual machine. So let's add a block's name, create a VM. Let me hide this separation here, make it larger a bit, like so. So to create a VM, we'll type a lone one-liner, separated with pipes and extended on several lines. So first we'll use VM config variable containing new az, oops, sorry, we need a dash here, az VM config command, and we'll need to provide a VM name, and that'll be the variable VM, right? Then we'll need to provide VM size, and for this we'll use standard underscore b1s, the same we've used previously when we've created a VM with GUI. And now let's add a pipe here and go to the next line. Now we'll set AZ VM operating system, and that'll be Windows. And we'll set the computer name so we don't need to change the computer name when we log in and when the VM is created. And that'll be again $VM variable. Now we'll need to set the credentials, right? We've created the credentials before, so we'll set it here. For this we've got credential parameter, and that'll contain the following value in parentheses. New dash object ps credential, and again in parentheses we'll use user variable, the value of user variable, separated with comma, and our pass variable for password. And again we'll finish it with a pipeline and go to the next line. Now we'll need to set az VM source image. For this we've got a publisher name parameter, and the name we'll need to use is Microsoft Windows Server. And we'll need to use author parameter, which is Windows Server again. And we'll need to use SCUS parameter for the edition, which is 2022-data center Azure-edition in double quotes. And we'll also need to specify version as to use latest version. Again, we'll place a pipeline here, move over to the next line, and finally use add-az network interface with ID parameter. And by the way, I cannot autocomplete here when hitting tab because I've made a typo again. So it's one of the methods to double check if you are typing everything correctly. Always try to press tab to autocomplete. As you can see, the command is not add but set az VM network interface. And now if we start typing ID and press tab, that'll autocomplete. Again, some typo here. Sorry, we need not set but add but az VM network interface ID. Now it is autocompleted, and we'll use $nick variable value dot, and we'll take ID property from it. So the creating a VM block is finished. Now I'll create one more block to disable boot diagnostics to make it simpler. And for this we'll use VM config variable, and we'll add one more command, set-az VM boot diagnostics command, and we'll add VM parameter. Again, we'll use VM config variable here, set to disable. And finally, we're ready to create a VM, actually the VM. For this, we'll use new-az VM commandlet, az VM, with resource group name, which is $rg, and name parameter, which is $VM. Okay, the main block, the main script is ready. Now we can add one more block, optional block, to output VM details, right? So for us to know what are the details of newly created VM. For this we'll use $new VM variable, and that will contain get-az VM command. We'll need the following information: resource group name, and we'll provide it with $RG. Let me scroll up a bit, and the name of the VM will be $VM. We'll also add one more variable, which we'll name new pip to get IP address information. So this variable will contain the following command: get-az public IP address. And again, resource group name, RG for it, and name for our pip will be taken from VM-pip variable. And now let's output this information to our screen. So we'll use write, not write exe, but write dash output with the following information: VM colon $VM. Again, write output user dash $user variable, write output, and this one is important, public IP. We'll get it from dollar, and in parentheses we'll request for our $new IP, new pip dot IP address. Let's close double quotes here. Now one more output, write output, and let's add some information for the final user. Connect via RDP using these credentials and the public IP address. That's it. Our script is done, and we can go ahead and run it in our Azure subscription. So let me show script pane here. To be sure, I'll run get-az subscription command here. And as you can see, we are connected to this enabled and active Azure subscription. Now we are ready to run this script. So I'll hit this run script button. We'll get some errors. So let's take a look. Let me click cancel here. Go up here to take a look at these errors. Cannot validate argument allocation method. So let's take a look at our new AZ public IP address line here. We'll go right here. And as you can see, I've made a typo, static instead of static. Let's rerun this script again. Again, we get some error. Let's refer to the next error we've got. Errors are okay, and you cannot write a script without errors. So resource group RG and so on could not be found. Let's go up to our resource group. Here it is. And seems like I forgot to create this resource group. Let's correct this error and add a block, create resource group, and we'll use a new AZ resource group command with name parameter, and we'll use $RG variable for our name. Now we'll also need to set the location, and we'll use $loc variable and add force parameter to create it forcefully. Now let me take a look at all other errors and correct it, and I'll get back to you when I correct these typos. So I also corrected typo in VM size. There was a typo in the VM size. I wrote standard with T instead of standard with D, and now let's try to run this corrected script. Okay, now it seems to be running successfully. And by the way, you'll be able to clone this script from my GitHub repo. I'll create a separate repo for this Azure course. Again, I've got some error. Let me again get back to you when I refer to all these errors. Okay, done, corrected some more errors. Let's try to rerun it. Now we are asked, are you sure you want to overwrite resource? Remember that when we are creating the existing with the resource name for the existing one, we are asked to override this resource. So I'll press yes here. Again, I'm asked to override the resource. Yes. I've also corrected the VM's name. As you can see, it's now shorter, lit DCPS, because as you remember, you need to use, here it is, the mistake I've got. Let me go up and find this mistake. So you need to use 15 characters to name your virtual machine. Now the script is successfully completed, and you can find the public IP address for your virtual machine and user's name and VM's name. So that's the script we'll be using later on as the base to create our lab containing as many virtual machines as we need. For example, we can create 6 or 10 virtual machines with one go, and that'll create quite a large lab with only one command, with only one run of the script. But to proceed to this more complicated script, we needed to break into the parts each and every command in this session. So here is the completed version of our first script. I'll name it something like creating one virtual machine in Azure and place it into a GitHub repo created for this particular course. In the next video, I'll show how I'll be creating a repo, placing this script into the GitHub repo, and how you can clone this repo and get this script for yourself locally. Now, one more thing I'd like to demonstrate is to go to my Azure portal and show you the created infrastructure. So let me switch to the Azure portal here. As you can see, I've got the previous resource group here, and if I refresh this page, there is no such a resource group, but we've got the resource group we've just created with our script, which is RGLit AD Lab created with PowerShell. And if we press this link here, we'll get all the needed resources for this resource group and for this particular virtual machine. Here is our DCPS NIC. Remember how we've created commands to name all these resources. The VM itself, libdc, PowerShell, public IP address, the disk, by the way, its name is auto-generated NIC name, and NSG name. So if we press this link libdc PowerShell, our virtual machine, first off, we'll get an overview of this virtual machine. As you can see, it's using Windows Server 2022 Data Center operating system as expected. The size is standard B1S, 1 CPU, 1 gig of RAM, its IP address, and so on. Location, West Europe, it's running, so we can go ahead and hit this connect button. We can download RDP file, and if I double click it, I can try to connect to this virtual machine if it's available, because it could be still in creation process. And seems like it's not available yet. Yes, but nevertheless, the resources are created and the script is functioning as expected. Now, it took some time to create this virtual machine. I have also successfully restarted this virtual machine, as you can see. Now let's try to connect it with our very secure password. Let me copy this password we've used in our script and my user's name. I'll click connect, OK. Now, as you can see, it successfully proceeds to connection, configuring settings, and we are successfully logged into this virtual machine created with quite useful PowerShell script. Now we can create a new script which will remove all the resources we've created to automate the whole process. So we need to use some resources we created with PowerShell script. We need to remove them, we remove them with PowerShell script. First off, it's very convenient and fast, and second, it eliminates the human errors and different typos possibility and so on. So if it's possible, try to use automation and try to automate the processes. Meanwhile, the machine is launching, and as you can see, Server Manager is launching right now. We've got networks, information message, and if we click local server here in Server Manager, it's a bit slow because of the lack of the resources for this virtual machine, but nevertheless it's functioning as expected, and the computer name is leaddcps1. If we minimize the server, the server manager will get all the information on our desktop, boot time, free space, memory, host name, and so on. So that's it. That will conclude our long demonstration on how to create an automation script, which you can use to create your lab environment. I hope it was informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing. And I'll right click here and select new file, name it rm single-vm.ps1, and we'll create a script which will remove the infrastructure and resources we've created with the previous script. Let me close this new single VM PS and carry on creating rm single VM PS script. So first off, let's again add basic settings section, and that will contain our variables, which were resource group variable containing the name of the resource group, which was rg-lead-ad-lab-created- PowerShell, right? That was the name. Now, the second variable was VM name, and it was lit. The final version of VM name was lit DC PowerShell. Again, to remind you, don't forget that this name shouldn't be longer than 15 characters. Otherwise, you'll get an error running your creation script. Next, we had vnet variable, vnet name, which was in double quotes rg, and of course rg with dollar character. That is our resource group variable, and we added vnet to it. Now, the second block is to remove our VM, right? So the command for it is remove -az VM. Next, we'll need to provide resource group name. And by the way, we don't have AZ module installed here for now. That's why I cannot autocomplete these commands. But that's okay for now. The script won't be so long as the creation script, so we'll type all the commands manually. So remove AZVM resource group name, and the name of our resource is contained in RG variable, right? And its name is $VM. And we'll use force parameter to forcefully remove it. Now we'll need to remove our NIC, network interface card. And for this we've got remove-az network interface. And again we'll use resource group name parameter with RG for this parameter, and we'll specify name, which was in double quotes $vm-nic, and again we'll add force parameter here. The next step will be remove public IP. Another resource we need to remove, not to get charged. Again, there is a command remove-az public IP address, and again we'll need to provide resource group name, which is $rg, and the name of the resource we are removing. So the parameter is -name, and the name of the resource is named $vm-pip, right? It was the name we created for our public IP. And again, we'll use force parameter here. The next one is network security group. So let's add a block here, remove NSG. We've got a command for it, remove dash, again, AZ. All commands in Azure PowerShell are starting with AZ. So AZ, and then network security group. Resource group name is the same, $rg, and name for our NSG is, again, our $VM variable dash NSG, and we'll use force parameter. We've got two more resources to remove, which are VNet and resource group itself. So first what you are removing. In this case, it's virtual network. So remove AZ virtual network, then again, from where you're removing. You're removing from resource group with the name $rg. And then you'll need to specify the name of what you are removing from this resource group. So we'll add name parameter, and the name was $vnet name. And force parameter is good for removing resources, to remove them forcefully, not to get any notifications or approvals. And finally, let's remove resource group itself. Again, remove -az resource group. And the name of the resource group is $rg plus force parameter. And let's write some output, like write output command will inform the user that all resources have been removed. Okay, that is the script. And now when we are done editing the script, we'll need to place it on GitHub. So I'll find this source control tab, I'll click it, and here I'll click commit and push. It means that this code will be placed to the remote repository so we can use it on our Azure portal. So I'll click commit and push, click yes here, and to commit a new file, the changes to the file, you'll need to have commit message. So I'll uncomment this one that says new file rm single vm.ps1 is added to our repository. I'll click this tick here to accept commit messages, and that'll place this file or push this file to the repository so we can use it. I'll press ask me later here. Now, if we go back to our Azure portal, and if we ls our repository, as you can see, we haven't got this file. That's because we need to update this repository to get the latest updates from the remote repository. So I'll clear the screen here. For this, we have two options. We can either cd to the upper directory and ls here. As you can see, we've got this repository, and we can go ahead and remove this repository with rm-rf command. That is a Linux command which will remove recursively all the directory and all its contents. So we can type Azure, learned lessons, hit enter, now type ls, and there is no such a directory anymore, it's gone. And we can rerun the previous command to clone the remote repository, this one. Git clone and the repository's address. Now, if we clone it and ls, it's again here, and we can again cd to this repository, list its contents, and now we've got the third file here, which is rm single VM. The second way to update the repository you've cloned is to use pull command. So you type git pull, and that's it. Already up to date. That'll update all the changes from remote repository to your local repository. Now, let's try to run the script we've just created, which is rm single vmps. First, let me check if these resources are there. So I'll minimize this Cloud Shell, go to resource groups here, and here it is, RG lead AD lab. Let me make it larger, created with PowerShell. We can log into this resource group and find all the resources here. As you can see, we've got the virtual machine itself, our NIC, network security group, our public IP address, the disk for the virtual machine, and virtual network also is there. Now, of course, we could go ahead and push this button, delete resource group, but first off, you cannot do it remotely with a command, and the second, you'll need to push this button, then you'll need to copy the resource group, then you'll need to tick here, apply force delete for selected virtual machines and virtual scale sets, and then you'll need to insert it, the name of the resource group, and then only delete and delete once more. Let's go back and cancel here and try to delete all these resources with the script we've just created. So let me reopen the Cloud Shell here, actually get back to the Cloud Shell because it wasn't closed, it was minimized. And we'll run this rm, then press tab to autocomplete. We'll need to add dash for the shell to know exactly what to autocomplete. I press tab again, and here it is. Now we push enter and the script starts running. Let's check if we typed everything correctly, and let's check if we have any typos or errors for the script. And of course, be ready that any action performed in Cloud Shell takes time. So the running of this shell script will take you approximately 2 to 3 to 5 minutes. And as you can see, the first resource is gone. I'll press pause here and get back to you when the script succeeds to run. And by the way, while it's running, let me insert a note here. Of course, we can go ahead and by the way, it's finished running. All resources have been removed successfully. But back to my information, of course, we can switch to the source control to our GitHub and code spaces, and we can attach and connect Azure right here and to run the scripts right from this code spaces file. But for the simplicity of demonstration, I wanted to demonstrate the process how you can manage your Azure. You can manage it from local computer on your local ISC for PowerShell, or you can go ahead and manage it from any remote location using this GitHub code spaces. Or you can manage it right from the Azure portal, from the Cloud Shell itself. And by the way, you can keep all these files on the storage attached to this Cloud Shell. So if we minimize this Cloud Shell, go to Home and go to Resource Groups. By the way, the resource group we've just seen is gone, and we've removed it with the help of script and automation. But I wanted to show you the resources which are attached to Cloud Shell storage, and here it is. And here it is the file, the storage account we are using to keep the files for the Cloud Shell itself. So we can enter it and see different settings for this storage account. We can open an Explorer or upload some files right here. So if we click upload and then click browse for files, we can also upload the script we've created. For example, this one, Azure Connect.ps1. I'll click open. Then we'll need to select the container or create a new one and then upload the file. Okay, let me close this. We can also open in Explorer, open Azure Storage Explorer and see what's there. But that was a remark. Let's get back to our Cloud Shell. So the files, the resources have been successfully removed, as you can see, and we've seen it in GUI that the resources related to this virtual machine are gone. So now we have two scripts right here. New single VM, which will create the VM and all the needed resources for it, and RM single VM, which will remove this VM and all the needed resources for this VM. Next up, we're going to build more complicated script, which will create two VMs in different regions. So that'll create total 6 VMs in one go. And that's where the power of PowerShell comes in handy. You can create 6 VMs in one go and start experimenting in your Active Directory lab in just several seconds. The lab will contain 6 domain controllers, not domain controllers, but VMs at this step. But nevertheless, you hit run the script button, and then in a matter of minutes, you get 6 running VMs which can be used. And when you don't use them anymore, you can delete them with one push of a button as well. So I hope this was informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing. In this lesson, we'll focus on deploying Azure resources across multiple regions using PowerShell commands. We'll create resource groups, virtual networks, and virtual machines in 3 distinct regions, namely UK West, East US, and Central India. To begin, we set up basic variables for user credentials. These credentials will be used for all virtual machines we create. Let me switch to my GitHub code spaces and open the script itself, and we'll quickly go through this script. So I've added 2 more scripts here, as you can see, new multi and RM multi. Then in my shell here on code spaces, I've performed git pull to update these changes and get the scripts to this GitHub code spaces environment. So let's open this new multi. I'll minimize this Explorer window and let me turn off this mini map. Let's go up to the beginning and make it a bit smaller, like this. You can get the script from my GitHub repository with git clone command, and we start. So first off, we create basic commands, as you can see. We create a user command, then the password variable, which will keep our password, and then we use convert to secure string command to our password be converted as a secure string instead of plain text. Then we create resource groups for each region. Resource group, as you remember, serve as logical containers for related resources in Azure. And creating three different variables, we organize and manage resources effectively. So first we create a resource group for UK West, then East US and Central India resource group. And the names will be RG AD Lab UKW, EUS, and CIN, respectively. For each region, we follow a similar process. First, we create a virtual network VNet with a specific address space. VNets are crucial for network isolation and communication between resources. And step number two, we then create two virtual machines in each region. Of course, you can modify the script for your needs. This is just a demonstration script for testing purposes to create a testing environment. Of course, it should be modified respectively if used in some production environment. So for each VM, we perform the following steps. So as you can see, we've got a block for a VM, for instance, lon DC1, and we name this virtual machine first, and then we create a public IP address for remote resources with this variable pip, and then we use new AZ public IP address command. Then we set up a network interface and associate it with the VNet. Here it is. And if we scroll to the right, as you can see, the address we are using here for UK portion of VMs is 10.0.0.0. Then we configure a network security group to control inbound and outbound traffic. Here it is, NSG. And we allow RDP connection to this particular virtual machine. And by the way, to all virtual machines we'll be creating. Then we define the VM configuration, including size, operating system, and credentials. As you can see, we're using standard B1S virtual machine. Let me make it larger like so. And we're using Windows operating system. We're using our credentials, which we've created before. And we use Microsoft Windows Server, offer Windows Server, SCUS, Server version 2022 Data Center Azure Edition. And we use latest version of this server. Then we disable boot diagnostics here. And finally, we create the VM using the specified configurations with this new AZ VM virtual machine. And we do so for all virtual machines. So we'll get 6 virtual machines, but with one difference. For example, East US virtual machines will be using this address prefix 10.1.0.0. And if we scroll down to India virtual machines, we'll be using TED 10.2.0.0 virtual network addresses. Okay, that's it. So the process is quite straightforward, and the process is similar for each virtual machine. So this script uses a consistent naming conventions for resources, making it easier to identify and manage them. For instance, VMs in London are prefixed with, let me go up to VMs in London here. So the VMs in London are prefixed with LON. Those in New York are prefixed NY, and in Mumbai with MUM, right? All VMs use the standard B1S size, which is suitable for light workloads and development testing scenarios like ours. They also run Windows Server 2022 Data Center Azure Edition, providing the latest features and optimizations for Azure. And at the end of the script, if we scroll down, we output connection information for each VM, including its public IP address and the command to initiate an RDP session. So this deployment script demonstrates several key concepts in Azure Resource Management. First off, multi-region deployment for global presence and redundancy, consistent resources naming and organization. It also demonstrates how to use automation of resource creation using PowerShell. We are also using basic network security with network security groups and standardization of VM configurations across regions. So using this script, you can efficiently deploy and manage Azure resources at scale, ensuring consistency and adherence to best practices across your organization's cloud infrastructure. So let's go ahead and switch to our Azure portal, launch Cloud Shell. I'll maximize it, make the font larger like so. We'll wait some seconds, clear the screen when it's done. Let's list the contents of our directory, and the project we need is this one, Azure Learned Lessons, the directory we've cloned in previous demonstration. So let me change directory to this Azure Learned Lessons. Again, clear the screen, list the directory, and as you can see, we've got only 3 previous scripts here. Let's run git pull command to update this repository. And we've got 2 more files. If we run ls again, we'll get this new multi-script right here. So let me clear the screen because the font is quite large for better visibility. Now, if I type new -m, hit tab to autocomplete, it doesn't want to autocomplete, so I'll add u. So as you can see, to run the script, we'll use // here it is, and new multi.ps script. Let's hit enter and see what happens. Okay, it started creating the resources. I'll make it smaller, and that'll take some time. I guess creating these 6 virtual machines and the resources needed for these virtual machines will take about 5 to 10 minutes. And I'll get back to you when it's done. Now it's done. It has taken about 15 minutes to implement, and the result is the creation of 6 virtual machines, as you can see. We've got London DC1 here, London DC2, New York DC1, New York DC2, and Mumbai DC1, Mumbai DC2. And the IP addresses for these virtual machines. So I guess these virtual machines are still being implemented, but in 5 or 10 minutes, I can go ahead and run this command mstsc/v colon and the IP address to log into this virtual machine. Now let me switch to the presentation and take a look at the diagram of our infrastructure. As you can see, this diagram illustrates our multi-region Azure deployment. 3 regions are used right now, and by the way, just for your note, when using this script, you could encounter a warning or an error that this particular size is not available in this region. So before implementing the script, make sure that the size of virtual machine you're implementing in, for example, East US region is available for implementation in this region. So we've got 3 regions here, UK West, East US, and Central India, and each region contains 1 resource group, 1 virtual network, and 2 virtual machines running Windows Server 2022. Virtual networks use non-overlapping address spaces. I've demonstrated it previously. So the first one is 10.0, the second one East-US is 10.1, and the third one is 10.2. We're using consistent naming convention here across all regions. And That's a good practice to use consistent naming convention for your infrastructure. So this setup provides global presence, redundancy, and follows Azure best practices for resource organizations. And also, please remember that that's a demonstration test and script. It could be modified and changed for your particular needs. Now, we've opened RDP port for each of these virtual machines. It's not that secure. We are using it for testing purposes. In production, usually you don't use such type of scenario. I'll be talking about the scenarios how you can access your virtual machines in the next video. But now let's switch back to our Azure portal and take a look at the resources present in our Azure portal. So I'll minimize this Cloud Shell. By the way, if we scroll up, we'll find all the information about each particular resource. And by the way, here we've got some arrow. And as you can see, the requested VM size for resource is not available. So standard B1S is currently not available for the location East US. That's what I told you about just some seconds ago. So make sure to check the size you need is available in the location you need. So before creating virtual machines with scripts, make sure that standard B1S is available in the location you need to create it in. And let's scroll up a bit further. Again, the same error for the virtual machine in East-US. So I guess we haven't got two virtual machines created, and these are East-US machines. Let's scroll up further. Okay, all other information is without errors. So let's minimize and check it in GUI. As you can see, resource groups don't contain yet the ones we've created with scripts, so I'll refresh this site and we'll get the resources updated. Okay, now as you can see, we've got the resources, the three resource groups, AD Lab CIN, AD Lab EUS, and AD Lab UKW. And if we enter AD Lab East US, we won't find virtual machines here, I guess. Yes, no virtual machines and disks attached to these virtual machines because this particular size is not available in this region. If we'll search for virtual machines here, click it and try to create a new virtual machine in East US. Let's select the region East US and go down here for the sizes of virtual machines. Let's select Windows Server 2022 first and then go down to the sizes. As you can see, we don't have such size currently available in East US for this subscription. So you could change the either location or VM size or both. For instance, you could place your third pair of virtual machines not in East US but for instance in North Europe and check it. Yes, in North, no, we don't have such size available as well, but that's for zone 1. For zone 2, if I select zone 2 here, we have such a size available for this particular region. But for this particular lab, I guess 4 VMs are okay for demonstrating the concept and power of implementing virtual machines with PowerShell. And now we are ready to move on to the creation of the script, or in my case, I've already created the script. I'll just demonstrate it to you how to remove all the three resource groups and the resources attached to these resource groups in one go. So let me switch to my scripting environment, GitHub code spaces. Here it is. Go to, if I click these three lines, go to code spaces, go to Azure Learned Lessons, click it, not the link, sorry, let me go back. But here, I'll close new multi-script here and go to the Explorer, and I'll open RM multi PowerShell script. Minimize the Explorer, and here is the script. So what we'll be doing here? Let me switch to the presentation and have an overview of this script. So after deploying and utilizing our Azure resources, it's crucial to understand how to properly clean up and remove these resources when they are no longer needed. And this process will help you to manage costs and maintain a tidy Azure environment. So our cleanup script demonstrates a systematic approach to removing Azure resources we've just created across the same three regions, which were UK West, East US, and Central India. Though we haven't created virtual machines in East US, nevertheless, we've created some resources there, like public IP address, NIC, and so on. And the removal order will be performing as follows. We'll remove virtual machine itself, and a command for it is remove azvm. Let's switch to our script. Here it is, remove azvm. Next, we remove the network interface associated with each VM using this remove az network interface command. We then remove the public IP address with remove az public IP address, network security groups. After all VM related resources are removed, we delete the virtual networks using remove az virtual network command. And finally, we remove the resource groups themselves with remove az resource group. So let me scroll down here. Here it is. Remove az resource group command will remove all three resource groups. So let's go back to our presentation here. So this order is important. Let me expand the removal order. This order is important because Azure enforces dependency relationships between resources. For example, you can't remove a virtual network while VMs are still attached to it. This script will use a consistent naming convention as well for resources, mirroring the one we used in our deployment script. This consistency makes it easier to identify and remove specific resources. And again, a key point to note here is this force parameter. Let me go back to the script. We're using this force parameter quite often, I must say in every one-liner. And this parameter bypasses any configuration prompts, allowing for a streamlined automated cleanup process. However, it's crucial to exercise caution when using this parameter, as it will remove resources without any additional warnings. And again, this cleanup process is repeated for each region, ensuring a complete removal of all deployed resources. Now let's switch to our Azure portal, open Cloud Shell, maximize it again. As I've refreshed or reloaded this site to demonstrate you the resources, the Cloud Shell has reloaded as well. So let me clear the screen and I'll type cd Azure Learned Lessons, the project we've cloned from GitHub remote repository. Again, ls here, and here we'll get the script rm multi we've uploaded in previous steps. Remember when we run the command git pull, it uploaded these two scripts, new multi and rm multi. And now, as you can see, we get already up to date when we run git pull. So we are ready to run this rm multi PowerShell script to remove all the resources and move forward. So I'll type rm-mu, hit tab to autocomplete, and hit enter. That will start the removal process. It will take about 5 to 10 minutes to remove all the resources automatically. And I won't be waiting for the completion of this process because I'm sure it will ride smoothly as I've tested it before. So I hope this was informative and I'd like to thank you for viewing. Now, there are several options how you can secure the connection to your virtual machine. And the first option is private access. So Azure offers implementing private access in both development and production environments. Private networking provides a foundation for secure access to Azure resources, such as virtual machine. So by involving allowing remote desktop protocol access exclusively from within private networks is one of the best options. This method significantly enhances security by limiting exposure to public internet threats. In developing a point-to-site VPN can be employed. This solution enables secure remote access for developers and testers, ensuring that only authorized personnel can connect to the development resources. Production environments require more strict access controls. So let's take a look at these production access methods. So best practices are for usage accessing servers solely through internal networks that have established routes to the Azure data center. This connectivity is typically achieved through a site-to-site VPN connections or dedicated circuits, providing a secure and reliable link between on-premises infrastructure and Azure resources. And of course, it's crucial to know that implementing these access methods does not fully address all potential security risks. Network administrators must consider additional measures to protect critical infrastructure, particularly domain controllers. And allowing unrestricted access to domain controllers from any private subnet is not recommended, as it could potentially expose these critical systems to threats. So, to mitigate these risks, it's essential to implement network segmentation and traffic filtering between specific subnets. This approach creates distinct security zones within the network, limiting the potential impact of a breach. And by carefully controlling traffic flow between these segments, organizations can better protect their domain controller infrastructure from unauthorized access, even from devices within less secure parts of the internal network. So, this was about private access option. The second option is the one we've used for building our test environment in previous demonstration lessons. We've used public internet access, and of course, it's not recommended by Microsoft. Microsoft strongly advises against allowing sorry, public internet access to Azure resources, particularly for remote desktop protocol or RDP connections. This recommendation is based on significant security concerns and is not merely a suggestion. And when you implement this public internet access via RDP, I suggest you to use the solution only for the lab environment, which are not important to keep secure. Now, cloud providers, let me expand this second node. Cloud providers frequently face attacks that exploit open RDP ports to gain unauthorized access to virtual machines. These breaches can lead to severe consequences, including the installation of ransomware, malware or some mining software on compromised systems. And of course, it's important to note that relying solely on strong passwords does not provide adequate protection. Even robust password policies cannot safeguard against potential zero-day security vulnerabilities in the RDP protocol itself. So, despite Microsoft's recommendations against public access, it is crucial to be aware that when provisioning new virtual machines through the Azure portal, public IP addresses are assigned by default. Additionally, default ports are often configured to be open. If a server requires a public IP address for specific reasons, it is essential to ensure that default ports are not assigned in the network security group. And as for domain controllers and public IPs, the use of public IP addresses is strongly discouraged. There is typically no valid reason to keep a public IP address attached to a domain controller, and it should be removed if present. In development environment, it is advisable to create servers without public IP addresses attached. This approach eliminates the possibility of public internet access, significantly reducing the attack surface and enhancing overall security. Now, there are some more options how you can connect to your virtual machine. And one of such options is just-in-time access. Just-in-time access prevents an unauthorized access and it presents an excellent alternative to providing continuous RDP access from private and public networks. This approach is based on the concept of network security rules that can be applied in network security groups or NSG or Azure Firewall. You can implement this just-in-time access or JIT access, but before it, certain prerequisites must be met. Let's take a look at these prerequisites. So, the server must be protected by a network security group, and Windows Defender for Cloud must be enabled for the required virtual machines. Once these prerequisites are in place, JIT can be enabled through the Security VM configuration option or via PowerShell. The same options are available when requesting access. Now, while JIT access offers significant security benefits, there are some considerations to keep in mind. JIT is part of Defender for Servers plan, which generates additional costs for every server with protection enabled. JIT access still uses the RDP port, which is not recommended for use over public networks. So these are the considerations. The good information is that JIT is available for in 30-day free trial for Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and to enable it, you can use your 30-day free trial period. Let me go to Azure portal. I'll switch to my Azure portal here, and let's go to virtual machines. For instance, this one, LoanDC1. And if you go to this connect, you'll find this just-in-time policy, and it is unsupported by plan because if we place a mouse here, we'll read just-in-time policy requires Microsoft Defender for servers P2 plan to be enabled on this subscription. So you'll need to go to this link, upgrade Defender for Cloud. For this, you'll need to go to Home first off, then to go to your subscription, click the subscription, check if you've got any credits. In my case, I've got 197 credits in 26 days. Now let me get back to my virtual machine. I'll go to Search, Virtual Machines, go to the LoanDC virtual machine and locate Security tab, expand it and go to Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Now, as you can see, we've got plenty of information here, 3 recommendations, security alerts, and if we scroll down, we can go ahead and try it free for the first 30 days. If we click it, we'll have a possibility to upgrade to this plan. And after upgrading to this plan, I won't be doing it for this particular demonstration, but after upgrading to this plan, you could go ahead to connect and use just-in-time policy. And there is one more option I'd like to cover here. If we go back to the presentation, as you can see, the option is using Azure Bastion. So what is Azure Bastion? Well, the previously discussed methods of access offer various levels of security. They all rely on connecting to VMs using the remote desktop protocol. Although Microsoft ensures that vulnerabilities are fixed and the more secure 3389 port provides traffic encryptions by default, the recommendation remains to avoid opening the RDP port over the public internet. So that's where Azure Bastion comes into play as a comprehensive solution. Azure Bastion is a platform as a service offering that enables you to access your virtual machines using a secure TLS protocol directly within the Azure portal. This service connects to Windows VMs using the 3389 RDP port, but presents the connection in your browser using secure TLS over port 443 inside the portal. So that's how it works. Now let's take a look at key benefits of using Azure Bastion. The first benefit is elimination of public IPs. You don't need to assign public IP addresses to every VM you want to access. This significantly reduces your attack surface and simplifies network security management. The second benefit is centralized access point. A single Azure Bastion instance can support all VMs in a specific virtual network and in virtual networks that have established peering. This centralization simplifies management and reduces costs. The third benefit is enhanced security by avoiding direct RDP exposure to the internet. Azure Bastion addresses many of the security concerns associated with traditional remote access methods. And of course, seamless integration. Azure Bastion integrates smoothly with the Azure ecosystem, providing a consistent and user-friendly experience for accessing VMs. Now, to implement Azure Bastion in a simple scenario such as a lab environment, it's quite straightforward. Let me go back to our Azure portal here, and we can find in the Connect tab Bastion link, so we can click this link Bastion, and here we can go ahead and click this link Deploy Bastion. So that'll create and use the service. Let's try to click this link Deploy Bastion, and as you can see, it's adding subnet, creating a new Bastion. It'll take some time. Now it's creating a new Bastion VNet UK West Bastion. You can also configure all the settings manually. There is such an option. But in this demonstration, we'll do this automatically. And you can always also check the status in this notifications area. If we expand it, we'll see that it's still creating a new Bastion. Now I'll press pause here and get back to you when it's done. So let me go to my Edge settings. I'll click Edge, Settings, and let me find Cookies and Site Permissions. And if I scroll down here, I'll find this pop-ups and redirects. And just for now, I'll switch from block to allow. Now let's go back to Azure portal and try to connect once more. Now as you can see, the window has appeared. I'll click allow here and click to reconnect. And as you can see, I am successfully connected to the Lone DC1 virtual machine with Azure Bastion service. That of course will take some time, about a minute or two, to launch the virtual machine completely because it's quite slow. So this Bastion, Azure Bastion, can significantly enhance the security while maintaining easy access to your virtual machines. So it's balancing accessibility with security in cloud environment. And now my virtual machine is launched. We can go to local server here and take a look at the settings of this virtual machine. It's Lone DC1 as you can see, and the machine is manageable and accessible, fully accessible with Azure Bastion service. Okay, that'll conclude our lesson on the options available for us to securely connect to remote virtual machines. I hope it was informative and I'd like to thank you for viewing. Now, I've implemented several virtual machines with the script we've covered in previous demonstration lessons. The name of the script was new multi, and I've created one more version of this new multi script. It is named new multi-v2, where I've replaced the machines to be created in East US zone with machines to be created in West Europe zone. And as you can see now, we've got 6 machines, AMS DC1 and AMS DC2 for West US zone, and the machines LON DC1 and MOM DC1 for 2 more zones. Now we are ready to move on with building our ADDS lab on these virtual machines. And before we start promoting our first domain controller, root domain controller, I'd like to switch to my slide with the lab overview of the final lab configuration I'd like to reach. So as you can see, we've got 6 virtual machines here, Lone DC1 serving as our forest root domain controller, and we're going to set up static IP address on each of these virtual machines because initially when we create a virtual machine, it gets a dynamic IP address. And it's according to the best practice to assign static IP addresses to domain controllers. And as you can see, we've got resource groups, 3 resource groups here, one for UK West, one for West Europe, and one for Central India. And the regions for these resource groups are set accordingly. All virtual machines are running standard B1S size of Azure virtual machines, and all of these virtual machines are running Windows Server 2022 GUI edition. So we are ready to implement the first domain controller, root DC. Let's switch to the slide. What we'll be doing when promoting our first domain controller. We'll be promoting Lone DC as forest root domain controller with GUI. And first we'll need to connect to this virtual controller. I'll be connecting with RDP, and then I'll open Server Manager and click Add Roles and Features on this particular virtual machine. But of course, I forgot to say that before doing all these actions on all virtual machines, we'll set up static IP address on all of them. So then, after launching Add Roles and Features, we'll install ADDS role on this virtual machine, go through all the steps, and install Active Directory Domain Services role. Then we'll perform post-installation configuration. We'll promote this server to a domain controller. So installing domain controller role on a virtual machine is two-step process. And the second step is to promote the server to a domain controller. Then we'll do some deployment configuration in the second step, like adding a new forest, set root domain name. I'll be using Learned Lessons root domain name. And we'll set up domain controller options such as functional level. We'll enter DSR M password, Active Directory restore password, and we'll set up NetBIOS name, which will be LIT or lit. Then we'll review the path, the path for database, log files, and sysvol path. And finally, after all this setup, we'll run the installation. We'll click install to begin the promotion process of our root domain controller. During this process, the server will restart and we'll be able to log in into our domain, which is learnedlessons.com. So with that said, let's switch to LoanDC1 and set up static IP address on this virtual machine manually with the help of GUI. So I'm now in my Azure portal, and if I go to virtual machines and find LoanDC1 virtual machine, then I'll click network settings. We'll get the private IP address and public IP address of this virtual machine. So to connect to this virtual machine, I'll use this public IP address. And on this particular Mac OS system, my local system, I'm using Microsoft Remote Desktop application. So I'll add PC here and I'll insert the IP address. And now let's try to connect to this virtual machine. I click add and double click this connection. Now I'll need to provide my username and password, the one we've used in the script. For now, I'm using my username in the script, but I'll change this username for example, administrator or some kind of username, which is not my personal username. And the password. As far as I remember, the password was your secure password 123 and exclamation point. Very secure password, but that's just for this particular lab environment. Let's click this show password and double check if it is spelled correctly. Yes. And we continue. Press continue again. And seems like I've made a typo somewhere. Let's try once more. Now it's okay. We've successfully logged into the LoanDC1 and we are ready to set up static IP address on this server. So that'll be our root domain controller. And when it's done launching, I'll click OK here, some exception. I can set up static IP address in different ways. I can go to local server in Server Manager. Seems like we got some troubles with while launching this server. Let me go ahead and reconnect to this server. Okay, the issue is not gone. Let me reboot this server. In my Azure portal, I'll click restart. Yes, it will take some time, especially for this size of virtual machines, which is standard B1S. Okay, the server has restarted and we are trying to set up static IP address on it. To do this, we can click local server in Server Manager and click on the link by the Ethernet with IPv4 address assigned by DHCP. So let's go ahead and click it. We'll get network connections window pop up. Let's double click Ethernet connection here and click properties. Then we'll click Internet Protocol version 4, click properties again, and configure the properties by selecting use the following IP address. So the IP address we want to use is 10.0.0 255.4. Subnet mask will be 255.255.255.0. The default gateway is 10.0.0.1. And by the way, you can check your default gateway, which is used after this VM has been created, with running cmd. You start searching cmd, hit enter and type IP config. That will reveal your default gateway right here. Right now it's 10.0.0.1. Let me minimize this window and continue with our setup. The preferred DNS server, the first one will be 127.0.0.1. This will be the DC itself after promotion. And let's say that we want to use LoanDC2 as alternative DNS server. And as you remember, LoanDC2 will be using 10.0.0.5 IP address. So this will be LoanDC2 after it's promoted. Okay, we'll click OK here, click Close. Now we've successfully set up Internet Protocol version 4 to static assignment. We'll need to reconnect to this server because we've changed network configuration here and we've successfully reconnected. I'll click Close here. I'll close network configuration as well. And now if we go to local server and IP version 4 address, as you can see, no, it's not changed. IP version 4 address assigned by DHCP, but we know that we've changed the IP address. If we double click, go to properties again, IP version 4, now we use the following IP address as static. Okay, we are ready to promote this particular server to our root domain controller. So I'll go to the dashboard in Server Manager and click Add Roles and Features. Click Next. Role-based or feature-based installation, click Next again. Select and make sure that we are using LoanDC1. Select a server from the server pool, click Next, and we'll be installing Active Directory Domain Services. So I'll place tick here, and we'll get Add Roles and Features wizard to add the additional dependent roles and features. Also make sure to include management tools if applicable. Click Add Features again and click Next. Next again, and click Install. That'll take some time and that'll be the completion of step 1 for domain controller promotion. And as you can see, we get an error here, could not load file or assembly presentation framework. The paging file is too small for this operation to complete. That's because this server does not meet the requirements, the minimum requirements to get Active Directory roles and feature to be installed. I'll click Close here and let me open System Properties with sysdm applet, system applet. So I'll type in search box sysdm.cpl. Here it is, control panel item that will open System Properties. And if I go to Advanced, Performance, Settings, then Advanced tab again, go to Virtual Memory and click Change. And I'll select Automatically Manage Paging File Size for all drives. Click OK, OK again, once more. And now let's try to rerun the installation process. So I'll click Add Roles and Features again, go through all these steps, select Active Directory Domain Services, add features, next, next again, and let's try to install after this configurational change. I'll click Install, and it started feature installation, as you can see. That'll time a minute or two, and we'll be ready to move on to step 2 to promote this VM as a domain controller. Now it's done. We can click Close here and click this flag in Server Manager, the notifications flag. I'll click this icon, and now we'll need to click Promote this server to a domain controller link to move on to step 2. Here we'll need to specify the domain information for this operation, and that'll be a domain controller in a new forest. So I'll select Add a new forest, and I'll add my root domain name, which is learnedlessons.com. That could be any domain name. If you're building a test and lab, you can use any name you prefer. So now we'll click Next, and in this window we'll need to select the functional level of the new forest and root domain. Ordinarily, you select the latest functional level for forest and domain. That's Windows Server 2016 right now. You can leave this domain name system, DNS server, and global catalog. You cannot uncheck this tick. Now we'll need to type the directory services restore mode password. I'll type somepass1 and repeat it and click Next. I'll skip this DNS options window for now, click Next, and specify the NetBIOS domain name here, which is lit. Click Next. Leave all the defaults for the path or for database, log files, and sysvol folders. As it is a lab domain, in a production environment, you'll need to consider the separate drives for this path, maybe depending on the design of your infrastructure. I'll click Next again, confirm and review the settings, and I'm ready to install this domain controller, to promote this domain controller by hitting Install button. So I'll click this button, Install, and that'll start the installation process, and after the installation is completed, we'll get our first domain controller, root domain controller, in our forest. So LoanDC as a forest root domain controller is ready. And by the way, to log into this domain controller with lead NetBIOS name. So to log into this domain controller, I've typed lead / my username and password. And if we close this windows, expand Server Manager, go to local server, we'll find the information that the computer name is LoanDC and domain is learnedlessons.com. Now let me switch to the second domain controller, which will be the additional domain controller for this root domain Learned Lessons. That'll be LoanDC2. So I'll close the connection to this one, and we'll create one more connection to LoanDC2. Let me switch to Azure portal to find out the IP address for LoanDC2. Let's press this link, not LoanDC1, but LoanDC2. Oops, again, not AMS. Here it is. And I'll find networking settings here, click it, and here it is. So the private IP address should be 10.0.0.5. We'll set it up as a static IP address, and public IP address to connect is this one. I'll copy it and switch back to my connections and create new PC here, paste it here. I'll use my user account. So let me create my password for this user account like this. Okay, let's go ahead and add this and try to connect to this LoanDC2. Click continue here. And while it's connecting, let's take a quick overview how to configure static IP address for LoanDC2 using PowerShell. So let me open my slide here, make it larger like this. So first off, we'll open PowerShell as administrator. I'll show how to do this. You can right-click on PowerShell and select Run as administrator. And then we'll set static IP address by running the following command to set the static IP address. So we'll run new net IP address, interface alias Ethernet or any alias you're using on your virtual machine, and we'll specify the IP address. In my case, it's 10.0.0.5. We'll specify the prefix length, which is 24, and default gateway. In my case, it's 10.0.0.1. Then we'll set DNS servers. We'll point it to the server itself. So the first DNS server address will be this lon DC2 server itself, and the second one will be lon DC1, which is 10.0.0.4. Okay, let's switch back to our connection to lon DC2 and perform these actions. Seems like we're disconnected. Let's take a look what happens here. Session was logged off. Okay, now it seems to be launching. Again, let me launch system properties. For this server, I'll type sysdm.cpl and launch control panel item. Here it is, the configuration, the properties of our system to set up page file to be automatically regulated. So I'll click advanced here, click performance settings, go to advanced in performance options window, go to virtual memory, click change, and click automatically manage page and file size for all drives. Click OK, click OK once more, and once more. Now let's try to add this additional server to an existing forest. So I'll click add roles and features. And by the way, yes, we forgot to set up the static IP address with PowerShell. So I'll click cancel here and click tools and select Windows PowerShell here to demonstrate you how to do it with PowerShell commands. Please know this administrator word in the name of this window. So we are running the commands as administrator. Let me make it larger like this and maximize the window. So first let's run the first command, which is new dash net IP address, like so. Don't forget about using tab completion. And the parameter is dash interface alias, and we'll refer to the alias of our interface, which is Ethernet in my case. And the next parameter is IP address, which is in my case, oops, we don't need this dash by the way, 10.0.0.5. Prefix length, not this typo, but prefix length 24. That'll be 255, 255, 255.0. And we'll set up default gateway, which is 10.0.0.1. So this command will set up our interface, network interface card to use static IP address instead of dynamic IP address. Right now, if we click this network icon in the right bottom corner, we can right click it, open network and internet settings, go to Ethernet, click change adapter options link, double click Ethernet, network card, click properties, double click Internet Protocol version 4 TCP/IP. As you can see, we are using automatic configuration. So the IP address is assigned automatically with DHCP. We don't want to use DHCP for domain controllers, so for lead DC1 we've set up manually with graphical user interface, and now we are setting up with the help of PowerShell to demonstrate how you can do this with PowerShell. So I'll hit enter here, and that'll set up our IP address. Instance already exists, as you can see. Okay, that's true because it suggests that an IP address configuration already exists for the Ethernet interface. And to resolve this issue, we could try to remove the existing IP configuration first, and we can do this with remove net IP address commandlet. So let's run this command. Let me clear the screen. I'll type clear, and I'll type remove dash net IP. Hit tab to autocomplete, net IP address, then interface not index but alias Ethernet, and we'll add confirm, sorry, not equal, but dash confirm colon $false, not to confirm this separation. I'll hit enter, and we get this, the connection to the remote PC was lost. Of course it was lost because we've removed this internet interface. So I'll switch to my Azure portal. Here, go to the LoanDC2 virtual machine, click Overview and click Restart. Click Yes. As we are learning here, I wanted to demonstrate you what happens when you remove your active network interface. Now the machine is successfully restarted, and here it is. We still have internal IP address 10.0.0.5, but it is still assigned automatically. So if you go to local server, let me close this server manager pop-up window. You can see that IP version 4 address assigned by DHCP automatically. We can also check it by running cmd command prompt and run ipconfig or ipconfig-all. As you can see, it's DHCP enabled, yes. Address with dash interface alias property, and we'll be using Ethernet as our name. Hit enter. So that will reveal the existing IP configuration for the Ethernet interface. As you can see, we're using DHCP here, and the IP address is .5. Now I'll hit Ctrl L to clear the screen, and we can use set-net IP address command with interface alias parameter, and we'll specify Ethernet dash IP address 10.0.0.5. Sorry, not double dot, but .5, and prefix length, again 24. Let's try to run this command, and it runs successfully. If you don't get any errors, it means that it runs successfully. Now let's run ipconfig/all. Oops, not config, but config. So we get IP version 4 address preferred, and default gateway is 10.0.0.1. Now we need to set up DNS servers. I'll clear the screen. For this, we'll run the following command: set DNS client server address, and we'll need to specify interface alias. Again, that will be Ethernet for my lab. For your environment, that could be different. So I'll type Ethernet in double quotes, and I'll need to specify server addresses, which is this server itself. It's 127.0.0.1. It means that the server refers to itself. And the second one will be our lone DC1, which is 10.0.0.4. I'll hit enter, and that'll set up our DNS configuration. Now, if we rerun the previously typed command, let me find it. Here it is, get net IP address interface alias Ethernet. We can find the IP address setup, and we can also verify the configuration, network configuration, with this command: get-net IP configuration. Hit enter. So IP version 4 address is .5, and DNS servers is 127.0.0.1 and 10.0.0.4. Now, before we move on to add in our second Lone DC2 as an additional domain controller in learnedlessons.com domain, let's set up its IP address, internal IP address, to be a static IP address. So as you remember, initially when we create a virtual machine, the IP address is assigned dynamically. So for Lone DC1, we've set up IP address with the help of GUI. In this case, I'd like to demonstrate how to do this with the help of Azure Shell, Azure PowerShell. So first, let's get the details of the network interface. For this, we'll need to know our resource group and the name of the VM itself. So let's find the resource group we've got on this Azure subscriptions. For this, I'll type get az resource. Oops, not resource, but resource group. And as you can see, we have several resource groups, so we can get lists of these resource groups. And in this case, we'll need to use this one, RG Lead AD Lab UKW. So let me copy it, clear the screen here. So let's add a variable, we'll name it Nick, and that will contain the following information. Get AZ network interface, resource group will provide the name of our resource group and the name of NIC, the name of virtual machine for this NIC. That will be Lone DC2 NIC. So here is the command. By the way, let me make it a bit larger. I'll hit enter and we've provided our NIC information. Now let's check the current IP configuration for this NIC. So I'll use the variable $nic.ip configurations. Hit enter. Let's make it smaller. Here it is. And now we can set up this network interface card to use static IP. So again, we'll refer to NIC variable. Let me erase this one. NIC dot IP configurations 0 dot private IP allocation method equals, in double quotes, static. Hit enter, done, and let's repeat the previous command to erase this information, and we'll add private IP address equals 10.0.0.5. Hit enter again, and now we are ready to apply these changes with set-az network interface, and we'll be applying it to our NIC variable. Hit enter, and of course I get an error because I forgot to use the parameter network interface followed by our NIC variable. Now it's applying, and then we'll verify the changes. So as you can see, it has applied successfully. Now we can get this network interface with the command get-az network interface resource group RG lead AD lab UKW name Lone DC NIC. So let's run this command, and that will reveal the same information as in previous result. Now we can go ahead and restart this associated Lone DC2 virtual machine with the command. Let me clear the screen here, and the command is restart-azvm. Then we'll provide resource group name, and in our case that will be RG lead AD lab UKW, and the name is, in double quotes, Lone-DC2. Not double C, but one C. Okay, hit enter, and we'll wait until it is restarted. So let's say you've encountered a situation when you've changed your NIC adapter and you try to connect to your remote server and you cannot connect to it because you've made some configuration changes and the server is inaccessible. Let me hit cancel here and go to Azure portal to the virtual machines. And as you can see, I have LoanDC2 opened here. So you can always modify your network settings in Microsoft Azure portal. You go to the virtual machine, for instance, and go to network settings by clicking this link, and you'll get all the settings associated with this particular virtual machine. So you can view the network interface IP configuration on this virtual machine. Right now it's on DC2 NIC configured, and you can click this link ipconfig1, which is the configuration for this NIC, and see the associated public IP address for this NIC. See the allocation, is it dynamic or static. You can always create a new public IP address here by clicking this link. So let's say that you want to solve your problem by creating a new network card and attach it to your server. So I'll click cancel here and go to IP configurations. To do this, you'll open your LoanDC2 server and go to network settings. It's already opened. And you can always attach network interface. For example, LoanDC2 NIC2. So you click this link, attach network interface. It's already got two network interfaces attached. Let's detach first. And only one is attached, so we'll need to delete the network interface already associated with this one. So again, let's click attach network interface and see the interfaces we already have. But first make sure that your virtual machine is turned off. So I'll click overview and click stop. That will stop our LoanDC2 virtual machine. And when it's done, we can move on to attaching a new network interface. So the machine is successfully stopped and we can attach new network interface. So I'll click attach network interface and I'll click create and attach network interface. Give it a name like LoanDC2-NIC2. Let's remove this second dash, sorry. So that'll be interface, our interface name. That'll be within this subnet .0.0.0, and that'll be within network security group, which will be created. That is basic. That'll automatically create this network security group, or you could select none, or you could select advanced and select the existing network security group. For example, this one, LoanDC2, which we've pre-created with our script, allowing the RDP connection. So I'll select LoanDC2 network security group for this one. And let's say that we'll be using static IP address assignment. We can try to use .5 IP address, but I guess it's already taken with the LoanDC2 NIC1 card. So as you can see, it's in use. Let's take .6. .6 already in use as well. Let's take .0. Sorry, .9. And we can go ahead and create this network interface card. That'll take some seconds. It's successfully created. Now it's being attached. Okay, it's attached. And we can either detach the previous network card or troubleshoot the server with two network cards. In my case, I'll detach network interface card, select the first one, LoanDC2-NIC, click OK. That'll detach the network interface card. And while it's detaching, let's take a look at the second card we've just attached. As you can see, it hasn't got public IP address configured. So let's click Configure here. Scroll down here, select the profile for this network card, click it, scroll down again and select Associate Public IP Address for this network card. We can either create a new IP address or we can select the previous one, which was LONDC2 PIP with .204 IP address, public IP address. Click Save here, and that will update. Oops, we have some message here, failed to update network interface card. That is already allocated to resource. As you can see, it's already allocated to resource LONDC2 NIC. So we first need to deallocate this resource from LONDC2. Let me open one more tab here and go to our resource LONDC2 NIC. So I'll click resource groups, go to UKW resource group and find LONDC2 NIC. Here it is, LONDC2 NIC, and this one is we've just created. So let's click on the first one, click public IP address here, and click dissociate. This action will permanently dissociate the public IP address LONDC2 PIP from network interface LONDC2 NIC. Okay, let's click yes. Successfully saved IP configuration. Let's switch back to our LONDC2 NIC2 configuration and try to, first off, don't forget about this refresh button. So we'll refresh the configuration. Now we'll enter ipconfig 1 once more and try to associate this IP address, this external IP address with this NIC once more. So I'll click this LONDC2 PIP, click Save, and I hope it will associate this external IP address with this NIC. Yes, now it's updated network interface. So let's get back to our LONDC2 network settings. Make sure we have LONDC2 NIC2 IP configuration selected. We've detached the second NIC card, so we cannot detach the only one card here. And we are ready to start this virtual machine and see if it will be reachable with this new network configuration. So I'll click Start, and we'll need to wait a bit until this virtual machine is started. I'll get back to you when it's done. One more note here on LONDC2. Let's say that you want to attach the third interface card and you try to, log into Azure portal, go to virtual machines, LONDC2, network settings, here it is, and you try to attach network interface here. And please note that you cannot attach additional network interfaces for standard B1's VM size. Only 2 network interfaces allowed. And I've attached 2 interfaces already to this VM. And as you can see, we've got 2 interfaces. If we click network interface here, we can select LONDC2 NIC2, and we can select LONDC2 NIC. So we can go ahead and start this virtual machine and troubleshoot the issues with network. Let me refresh it here, click Start. That will start virtual machine, and we can log into the public IP address, which is attached now to the second network interface adapter, and troubleshoot the first network interface adapter in case we have some issues with it. We could go ahead and revert the changes we've made, which led us to these issues. So the virtual machine has started. Let's go ahead and try to connect to it. I'll type mstsc to launch remote connection and hit connect. As you can see, we successfully can connect to this virtual machine using the second NIC. So I'll type in my username here, your secure password, 123 exclamation point, and click yes here. And we can connect to this virtual machine. So after creating LONDC1, we are ready to add our second domain controller, which is LONDC2, and this lesson covers the process of adding LONDC2 as an additional domain controller to the learnedlessons.com domain using the graphical user interface in Windows Server. Before beginning, ensure that LearnDC1 is set up and the first domain controller for learnedlessons.com. Additionally, LearnDC2 should be a Windows Server machine already joined to learnedlessons.com domain. It's an option. Right now, if I go to my LearnDC2, here it is, and check the server manager in local server, it's not joined to learnedlessons.com domain. Nevertheless, I'll be joining this server to promoting this server as domain controller. So let me get back to my slide here. And one more prerequisite is that LearnDC2 is set up with proper DNS address. So LearnDC2 should be set up with LearnDC1 DNS address, which is 10.0.0.4. So let's go ahead and switch to our installation. I'll go to Server Manager, click Dashboard, click Add Roles and Features, click Next, Next again. Make sure it's LearnDC2, which is 10.0.0.5. Click Next, select Active Directory Domain Services, click Add Features, click Next again, again, and click Install. That will install the first part of the ADDS role. Then we promote this server as the secondary domain controller for the root learnedlessons.com domain. That will take a minute or two and we'll continue. Okay, it's done. I can click Close here and go to this notification areas with the flag and yellow exclamation point. Select Promote this server to a domain controller link and select Add a domain controller to an existing domain. Now, it's important that this VM has the connectivity with the first domain controller, which is LearnDC1. So if we have any issues, we'll troubleshoot them on the go. So here let's type learnedlessons.com, click Select, and I'll provide my credentials here like this, my username at learnedlessons.com and the password 123 exclamation point. Let's double check it and click OK. Now, as you can see, we've encountered an error contacting domain controller, domain learnedlessons.com. So let's open network and internet settings, go to Ethernet, change adapter options, and manually I'll add a DNS server here. So I'll click Use the following DNS server address and specify 10.0.0.4. That's an IP address of LearnDC1. Click OK. OK once more. Close. Close here and close here. And by the way, if we switch to Azure portal, here it is. And by the way, LearnDC2 is opened already. So if we go to networking settings in the virtual machine settings, go to the network interface IP configuration, click it. We can find DNS servers here as well. And we can specify the custom DNS server, for instance, 10.0.0.4. Click Save. And now it's saving network interface in Azure portal as well. And it's saved. And as you can see, apply DNS servers is the one we've just specified. Let's get back to our VM. And if I click Select once more, as you can see, we've found the domain we need, learnedlessons.com. Click it, click OK, and now we can click Next. So it found default first site name, and here we'll specify DIAS SRM password. I'll specify some pass1, click Next. We'll skip DNS part for now, click Next again. Now we can replicate from media if we've got some slow connection or offline promotion of domain controller, or we can replicate from any domain controller. So in my case, there is only one domain controller, which is lone DC1, but I'll leave any domain controller here, click next. I'll leave the default path here for database, log files, sysvol folder, and click next again. We can also go ahead and view script here. If we click with view script, we'll get the PowerShell script we'll be using to promote this domain controller. I'll close it for now and click next. Now we'll get the prerequisites check results. We can read through all these warnings and information, and when we are done, we can click install. And that will install the secondary domain controller, which is lone DC2. Now there are two domain controllers located in one side, that is UK West, and next we'll be adding two more sites, namely West Europe and Central India. So while it's being installed, it'll take some time, and I won't be waiting till it completes. I'll get back to you with the next lesson where we'll be adding the second site to our domain structure. So for now, we've configured our root domain, which is learnedlessons.com, and two domain controllers, LoneDC1 and LoneDC2, serving this root domain. The next step is to configure our subordinate domain. Let's say that we will be configuring mumdc1 and mumdc2. As you can see, the location for these domains are different. So mumdc1 is located in central India and LoneDC1 is located in UK West. And AMSDC1 is located in West Europe. Now to configure connectivity between these sites or locations, we'll need to do one more thing. We'll need to configure virtual network peering between these sites. So before adding our subordinate domain on mumdc1, we'll need to configure VNet peering. To do this, we'll go to Home on Azure portal or just start searching virtual networks. Here it is. I'll press virtual networks and we'll get our three virtual networks for each location. So right now we'll be configuring Central India location. Let's start with it. We need to have connectivity between Central India and UK West location with our root domain controller. So for this we'll press VNet Central India, and in this virtual network settings we'll expand settings. Here it is. So I'll expand it and find peering. Here it is. Let me make it larger like this. So let me scroll down and press this peering option or setting. And here we can press add button to add new peering connection between our sites. So I'll click add. Now we need to name our peering, and the first name is for the remote site to which we'll be connecting, to which will be peer. So let me scroll down here and show you. So the first name is for these connections, where we are allowing the peered virtual networks to access Central India, and we allow the peered virtual networks to receive forwarded traffic from Central India. And as you can see, the name of the setting is Remote Virtual Network Peering Settings. So I'll add a tick here and go up to give it a name. Let's name it UK West _ Central India. That'll be our peer name for the remote location. We'll need to select virtual network, by the way, here. Let's select Central India. Select a different virtual network. A virtual network cannot be peered to itself. And that's true. We'll need to select UK West. And I'll be using Resource Manager instead of Classic because in Classic peering scheme you'll need to perform part of your configuration with the manual running of PowerShell commands. So I'll scroll down, I'll leave this blank as I don't have any gateways configured right now. And now I'll need to configure local virtual network summary. So let's give it a name like Central India underscore UK West, and will allow VNet Central India to receive forwarded traffic from VNet UK West. I'll select it. Now, before clicking add, let me go to AMS DC1, which is located in central India, and show you how it's connected right now. It's configured right now. So let's switch to MUM DC1 virtual machine. Let's connect to this virtual machine. Now, as you can see, it's MUM DC1. It's still in work group. It is not domain joined VM. And let me launch command line interface by typing cmd here in search box. Hit enter. Let's make it larger. I'll click here, go to properties, font. Let's make it 32 or even 36. Click OK. Now let's try to pin our, first off, let's reveal the IP configuration for this virtual machine. I'll type ipconfig, and as you can see, we've got 10.2.0.4 IP address. Now if we try to pin 10.0.0.4, which is the IP address of our primary domain controller, root domain controller, lon DC1, hit enter here, and as you can see, we cannot pin this virtual machine, request timeout. That's because this site or this location doesn't know anything about 10.0.0 location. So that's why we need to configure peering between 10.2 and 10.0 locations. So let's get back to our peering, click add here, and that'll add virtual network in peering. As you can see, add in virtual network in peering, Central India to UK West. Now it's done. It has successfully added peering. Let's switch back to our MUM DC1 VM, and I'll clear the screen. And let's try to rerun this command. Now, as you can see, we can successfully pin the remote virtual machine located in 10.0 network. And we can start adding this virtual machine as a subdomain. But before we do so, let's configure one more thing. Let's try to pin learnedlessons.com domain. And as you can see, pin request could not find host learnedlessons.com. That's because we don't have DNS configured correctly. So let's go to our server manager, localhost, local server, click Ethernet here, IPv4, double click Ethernet, network, internet, card, click properties, select Internet Protocol version 4, and configure DNS. Let's set it to 10.0.0.4, the IP address of LON DC1. Click OK, OK once more, close this window, and let's try to rerun the previous command in this window. So I'll find this command, pin learnedlessons.com, hit enter, and now our server knows about such domain, and we are ready to add a subdomain to our root domain. So let's minimize this window, go to dashboard in server manager, and click add roles and features here. Click next once more, and select Active Directory Domain Services here. Click Add Features, click Next again, once more, and click Install. And again, that'll take a minute or two, and I'll get back to you when it's done. So it's done. I'll click close, and again, I'll click this exclamation point in notifications area, find promote this server to domain controller, click it, and now I'll select add a new domain to an existing forest. Now here we'll need to select to type in parent domain name, which is learnedlessons.com. And by the way, we can select either to create a child domain like this or tree domain. We'll be creating a child domain, and we'll need to provide new domain name, which is moon, like this. Now let's click select here to find learnedlessons.com domain with our credentials. So I'll use my root domain credentials, my username at learnedlessons.com, and the password, which is your secure password. 123 exclamation point. Let's double check it. Okay. And as you can see, it has successfully found the root domain. I'll click it, click OK, and click Next. That'll take some time to update the information from the root domain. We'll be using domain functional level Windows Server 2016. It's the latest for now. And I'll need to provide Active Directory Services restore password and repeat it. Click Next. By the way, that'll be global catalog as well. And I can leave this tick here, create DNS delegation, with my credentials for delegation creation, which is my username. Okay, I'll click Next here. The NetBIOS domain name, okay, let's leave it as it offers. Click Next. Leave the defaults here, click Next. Again, we can view the script and we can find new domain name here, moom, and new domain NetBIOS name, which is the same. We're using default first site name here. So let's close the script, click Next. That'll run the prerequisite check analysis and give us the report, and we'll be ready to hit install button. Then we'll need to add DC2, moom DC2 as the secondary domain controller for this site, and do the same actions and steps for Western Europe region for AMS subdomain. Okay, the prerequisite check is ready. We can click install, and after this installation is completed, we'll get one more domain controller on the other side, on the remote side, with subdomain moom.learnedlessons.com. And then we'll install the secondary domain on it. Okay, ADDS role has been successfully installed and the server has restarted. I used my new credentials with moom NetBIOS name to log into this server. And now if we go to local server in Server Manager and check the domain, you'll see that we are using moom.learnedlessons.com. And if we launch tools, Active Directory users and computers, go to our domain and go to domain controllers, we'll find that we've got only one domain controller on this side, moomdc1. So let's go ahead and install the secondary domain controller on moomdc2. So I'll log into moomdc2. I've pre-created the remote desktop connection for it using my username and password in Microsoft Remote Desktop app. Again, I'll need to set up the IPv4 address in here to use LoanDC1 as a DNS server. So I'll click Properties here, go to Internet Protocol version 4 and use the following DNS server address 10.0.0.4. Of course, we can use the moomdc1 DNS address and we can set up DNS settings later on. For now, just for quick steps, we'll use LoanDC1 as our DNS server. So I'll click OK here, close all these windows. Now to double check, let's try to pin, I'll type cmd to launch command prompt, and let's try to pin 10.0.0.4, and as you can see, it successfully performs this action with reply. We won't be pinning moomdc1 because I guess there is a connectivity, so we'll go to dashboard in server manager, click add roles and features again, and do all the steps we've performed before. Again, Active Directory domain services, add feature, next, 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 install. I'll press pause here and get back to you when this process is done. Okay, let's continue the promotion process of this DC. So I'll click this link, promote the server to a domain controller. And again, we'll be adding a domain controller to an existing domain. But this time we'll be adding to moom.learnedlessons.com subdomain. So let me type here the complete name for it, moom.learnedlessons.com. Again, let's try to find it. I'll click select to find it. And now I'll need to provide my credentials like this, my username at moom.learnedlessons.com and my password, which is your secure password. Let's double check it. So let's click OK and see if it finds the domain, the subdomain. And as you can see, we've encountered an error contacting domain. So let's click cancel here and try to troubleshoot it. So first off, let's reveal our IP configuration here with ipconfig command, that is 10.2.0.5. Let's try to pin the first domain controller in this subdomain with 10.2.0.4. And we can successfully pin it. So now let's change the DNS configuration to use our subdomain DNS. I'll go to Network and Internet Settings. And by the way, let me close this window. We could use the NCPA, CPL, NCPA, CPL control panel item. Here it is. And that'll bring us to network connections again. I'll double click our NIC adapter, properties, IP version 4. So let's use 10.2.0.4 IP address and alternate DNS server. Let's leave it blank for now. Click OK. OK. Now let's try to rerun this discovery process. But by the way, let's try to pin moom.learnedlessons.com. And as you can see, we get the reply, meaning that this server knows about this subdomain. Okay, let's try to rerun this process. And subdomain is discovered, and we can add the server either to learnedlessons.com or moom.learnedlessons.com. So let's select the second one, click OK, and click Next here. Again, I'll leave Global Catalog as selected and domain name system DNS server. Provide the password for Active Directory restore and click Next. Again, I'll update DNS delegation here using my credentials. Click Next. And now I can specify replicate from option, so I can select either moomdc1.moom.learnedlessons.com or any domain controller. Okay, let's go with any domain controller. Click Next. Leave the defaults here. Next again. Next again. And finally install. So that concludes our domain setup process, because I won't be demonstrating these steps for AMS subdomain. I'll perform it and repeat all the steps we've just seen. Nothing new there. And after it is done, we'll get a fully functioning domain set up in 3 locations with 1 root domain and 2 subdomains, with 2 domain controllers on each location. So I hope it was informative and I'd like to thank you for viewing. Now, after we've set up our lab environment and completed installation of all the servers and ADDS roles on these servers, it's essential to verify and, if needed, correct DNS settings across multi-region Active Directory deployment. Let's focus on the configuration of DNS zones, forwarders, and delegation objects in our infrastructure. Let me switch to my slide here. So to begin, we'll connect to our root domain controller, either to LoanDC1 or LoanDC2. And there we'll open DNS Manager and verify the presence of a forward lookup zone for learnedlessons.com. Additionally, we can check for delegation objects related to AMS and MOOM subdomains. So let me expand these bullets here. So next we'll examine the DNS forwarder settings on the root domain controller. We'll assess the server properties and navigate to the forwarders tab. It's crucial to confirm that the forwarder is correctly pointing to Azure DNS, which is typically 168.63.129.16 IP address. Then, to assess basic DNS resolution functionality, we'll utilize PowerShell on the root domain controller. And we can execute a series of resolve DNS name commands to test resolution for various domains, including Microsoft.com, LearnedLessons.com, AMS, LearnedLessons.com, and MOOM, LearnedLessons.com. And if we encounter issues resolving the subdomains, we may need to create DNS delegations. This process involves adding new delegations for AMS and MOOM within the DNS manager. Specifically, we'll add appropriate domain controllers and their IP addresses. DNS zone replication is another critical aspect to configure. And for this, we'll need to connect to a domain controller in Amsterdam or Mumbai, such as AMS DC1, and we'll open DNS Manager, access the properties of the respective subdomain, for instance, AMS.LearnedLessons.com, and modify the replication settings to ensure distribution to all DNS servers in the forest. It's also important to verify DNS forwarder settings on a child domain controller. We can check AMS DC1 or DC2 or MOOM DC1 and DC2 to confirm they are configured to forward requests to the UK West domain controllers, which are LoanDC1 and LoanDC2. So with that said, let's switch back to my domain controller LoanDC1 first, and we'll check if there is a forward lookup zone for learnedlessons.com. For this, I'll open DNS Manager, so I'll click Tools, DNS, here it is, and check if there is forward lookup zone for learnedlessons.com. So I'll go to this folder, forward lookup zone, click it, and as you can see, there is such a zone, learnedlessons.com, contain the information about MOOM subdomain, here it is, and AMS subdomain. We can also right-click LoanDC1, go to Properties, and find its IP address here. Now, if we right-click on the server's name, this one, LoanDC1, go to Properties, we can find the forwarders here, Forwarders tab. So let's click it, and as you can see, it's blank right now. We can go ahead and click Edit here and try to add Azure DNS address here. Let's try to add 168. Let me remove this one. 168.63. 129.16. And as you can see, it's successfully added. We can say that we have this green circle with a tick. So I'll click OK. Now we have one forwarder in the forwarders tab of Lone DC1 server. Let's click OK here, and we can go ahead and try to perform some basic DNS resolution tests. So let me switch to PowerShell and run some commands. For instance, resolve-dns name dash, and we'll need to specify the server we want to use. For example, this one, which we are using right now, LoneDC1. And let's try to resolve www.microsoft.com. Hit enter, and as you can see, it successfully resolves the servers for Microsoft.com. Let's clear the screen and try to resolve, instead of Microsoft.com, we'll resolve learnedlessons.com. Hit enter, and it can resolve both servers. Now let's try to resolve AMS subdomain. So I'll add ams.learnedlessons.com, and it also resolves both servers. And finally, moom.learnedlessons.com, and as you can see, it gets only source of authority. So we can go ahead and try to create delegations for these domains. Again, let me switch back to DNS Manager here, right click on learnedlessons.com, and I can go ahead and choose new delegation here. Next, let's say that we want to create a delegation for moom.learnedlessons.com. Click Next and add the servers, for instance, moom-dc1. Let's try to resolve it. It cannot resolve, so let's add an IP address here. As far as I remember, it's 10.2.0.4. Okay, it's correct. And here let's add moom-dc1.moom.learnedlessons.com, and if we hit resolve, it finds the server correctly. Click OK, and we can add one more server, moom-dc2.moom.learnedlessons.com. Let's try to resolve this one, and we'll add an IP address 10.2.0.5. Again, let's try to resolve it. Now it's OK. I'll click OK, click Next, click Finish. And as you can see, DNS domain or delegation by this name already exists. To change an existing delegation, right-click on the delegation and select Properties. So if you don't have such a delegation, that's how you add it. In my case, I have such a delegation automatically created when promoting domain controller. So I'll click OK here and click Cancel. And as you can see, here it is, the folder for Moom. So if we double click it, by the way, we've got only one record here for Moom DC1. Now let's try to create a delegation for AMS. So I'll right click my domain controller and, sorry, not domain controller, but I'll have to, in DNS Manager, I'll have to right click my root domain, learnedlessons.com, and find this new delegation, go next, and let's try to add ams.learnedlessons.com, click next, and set up the servers, click add, and I'll type ams-dc1.ams.learnedlessons.com. Let's try to resolve it, and it successfully resolves with 1.0.4. Click OK, and let's add one more, ams-dc2.ams.learnedlessons.com. Try to resolve this one, and it also resolves with 10.1.0.5 IP address. Click OK, go next, finish, and again, this delegation is already in place. And again, as you remember, it was automatically created when promoting a domain controller. So I'll click OK here and click Cancel. Now we can switch to some of the subdomains. For example, AMS-DC1, here it is. It was disconnected. Let's reconnect to it. Continue. I'll wait a minute until it loads because it's quite slow, as it is B1S size virtual machine with 1 gig of RAM, but it's included in Azure free subscription eligible, providing you 750 hours a month for free. And again, I'll go to Tools here in Server Manager, find DNS, click on my server, AMS-DC1 in this case, expand it, go to Forward Lookup Zone, right-click on ams.learnedlessons.com. I can choose Properties here, and for example, go to Zone Transfers and allow zone transfers to any server, only to servers listed on the Name Servers tab, or only to the following server. We can specify the servers. Let me click Cancel here for now, and again, right-click the zone, go to Properties. We'll change it because we don't run any Windows 2000 versions here in this forest. Oops, it's gone somewhere. Let me right-click it once more, go to Properties, and click OK here. I'll click Yes. This zone will no longer be hosted on DNS servers running Windows 2000. I'll click Yes here, click Apply, and click OK here. Now, let's make sure that the forwarders point to our root domain controller. So I'll right-click ams.learnedlessons.com, go to Properties. Sorry, again, not ams.learnedlessons.com zone, but the server itself, AMS-DC1, Properties. Go to Forwarders tab and double-check that it is set to forward the requests to our root domain, which is LearnDC1. Click OK. And by the way, we can add one more server here by right-click the root of this DNS manager on DNS word and select Connect to DNS server and select the following computer. Let's connect to AMS-DC2. Click OK. And now we are connected to AMS-DC2. Let's right-click this server again and check the forwarders as well. So I'll select Properties, go to Forwarders, and it is configured correctly too. Now let's do the same for on MUM-DC1. So I'll right-click here, connect to DNS server, the following computer. Let's try to connect to MUM-DC1. Click OK. And the server is unavailable because we haven't set up the VNet peering between these two sites. We've set up the VNet peering between MUM and West UK and between AMS and West UK. But we haven't set up the VNet peering between AMS and MUM. So I guess if we try to pin the MUM site from here, we won't get any response. Let's try to run cmd command and see if I'm right. So let me make it larger. Properties, font 36. Okay. Let's reveal the IP configuration for this particular machine. It's 1.0.4. And if we try to pin 10.2.0.5, for example, .5, we won't get any response because we haven't set up the VNet peering. So that'll be a small task for you. If you're following along, please set up the VNet peering between these two sites. So that'll conclude our basic check and setup of DNS configuration on our lab environment. Of course, DNS topic is much deeper, but I wanted only to demonstrate that our lab is functioning and DNS is functioning as expected, and if we get any issues, we can troubleshoot these particular issues when we encounter them. Next up, we'll be talking about sites configurations, and we'll create three separate sites for the three locations we've got. In this lesson, hands-on lesson, we'll explore the process of configuring Active Directory sites for a multi-region lab environment. This configuration is essential for optimizing domain controller workload distribution and improving overall network performance. So initially, during the domain controller promotion process, we did not modify or create additional sites or subnets. As a result, all domain controllers in the forest currently reside within default first site name. Now let me switch to my demonstration and we continue. So to enhance efficiency and better manage the workload across different domain controllers, it's necessary to create distinct sites that align with the regions where our domain controllers are located, namely UK West, West Europe, and Central India. Now, using Active Directory sites and services console, the command for it is dssite.msc, we can easily create new sites. And to do so, open the console, right-click on Sites option, select New Site, and enter the site name, such as UKW01, and then choose default site link with IP transport as the site link, and repeat this process for West Europe site and Central India site. Now, to optimize replication, it's recommended to adjust the replication frequently. We'll set it to 15 minutes, which is the minimum allowed value. This can be done through the graphical user interface by navigating to inter-site transports in the Active Directory sites and services console and right-clicking on default site link, selecting properties and setting the replication frequency to 15 minutes. Next up, we'll be creating subnets. We'll create UK West subnet, West Europe, and Central India. Now, we can assign domain controllers to sites, and we can do this by using graphical user interface. We can use PowerShell to assign domain controllers to sites with move AD directory server commandlet, and we'll be working with these domain controllers LON DC1, DC2, AMS DC1, DC2, and MOOM DC1, DC2. So after configuration, default first site name will become empty, and it's not necessary to remove it, but we can remove it if it's not needed. Now, with that said, let me switch back to my domain controller. Here it is. And what domain controller is this? Let's check local server here. It's moomdc1. No, it's wrong domain controller. Let's go to this one. Seems like it's longdc1. Yes, it's longdc1, and we can start searching for ds site.msc. Here it is, Microsoft Common Console document. Let's click it. We can click on sites, expand it, expand default site name, and expand servers and find our thick servers located here. Now, if we right click on sites, we can select new site and enter the site name, such as, for instance, UKW01. Then select default site link and click OK. Site UK West has been created to finish configuration of UK West, ensure that UK West is linked to other sites with site links as appropriate. Add subnets to UK West to the subnets container and install one and more domain controllers in UK West or move existing DCs into this site. I'll click OK here and I'll repeat these steps for West Europe and Central India. So I'll select new site, type in WEU01, select default site link, click OK, and do the same for Central India. I'll type in SIN01, default site link, and click OK. Alternatively, I could use Windows PowerShell. So to demonstrate you, let's remove this last site we've created. I'll right click it, click delete, click yes. So it informs me that if you delete this object, the objects will not be recovered. I'll click yes and switch to PowerShell. Let's clear the screen here and type the following command: add dash, sorry, not add, but we'll need new dash AD replication site and we'll add link. Then the following parameter will need to name it. So I will add name parameter and specify the name in double quotes. That will be sin01. Hit enter. Site link must contain at least two sites in the attribute sites included. And of course, that's the second step for our process. So we don't need site link command here. I'll remove this link and we'll use only new AD replication site command to first create the site with this name. And now we'll repeat this step using AD replication site link command but with different parameters. First, we'll need to specify sites included parameter, and now we'll specify the site we've just created, which is sin01 in double quotes. Oops, not 01 but 01. And the name of this site link we're using is default IP site link, right? Hit enter, and it must contain at least two sites in the attribute sites included. So yes, we can create a site with PowerShell, but we'll need to modify this new AD replication site link command, and we need to include at least two sites here. So if you want to proceed with PowerShell command, you could do the following. You could first find all sites with get -ad replication, not attribute, but site link. Then you could filter, and here in curly braces we'll specify what we want to filter out. Name equals default IP site link in double quotes and close curly braces. Let's find the objects. Now, as you can see, we've got two objects here, West Europe, UK West, and we've just created one more object. Here it is, sin01. So we could go ahead and include these three objects with set AD replication link command. Okay, but let's get back to our graphical user interface here. Now when we have three sites created here, sin01, UK West 01 and West Europe 01, we can go ahead and optimize replication by setting the replication frequency to 15 minutes. So if we navigate to inter-site transpose here and expand it, go to IP and find this default IP site link, right click this, go to properties. We can add this sites not in the link, so we will add this scene01 here and change replicate every 15 minutes here. Click apply and click OK. Now our sites will be replicating every 15 minutes. And we can also achieve this with the help of PowerShell. So if we type the following command set-ad replication, not connection, but site link, then we'll need to use identity parameter and specify the name of our IP site link, which is default IP site link in double quotes. And then we've got such a parameter as replication, not replace, but replication frequency in minutes. And we can set it to 15. Hit enter and it's done. And by the way, let's check. Let's set it to 20 and double check in GUI. If we go back to GUI, go to properties, we can find that now replication is set to every 20 minutes. Let's make it 15 back and I'll clear the screen here. Now we are ready to create subnets. So we'll create subnets that cover all the networks used by Active Directory clients and servers. Let's get back to the GUI and I can click subnet here, right click it and select new subnet. So for UK West, actually let's start with Central India because it goes first. I'll type 10.2.0.0/16 and select Central India here. Click OK. Now I've got Central India subnet. And I can do the same with the help of PowerShell. So let's create two more subnets with PowerShell. I'll type new-ad replication subnet name in double quotes 10.1.0.0/16 close double quotes, and that will go for site named Western Europe 01. Hit enter and it's done. Let's repeat this step for 10.0.0.0 for UK West 01. Hit enter. Let's double check it in GUI. I'll right click on sites, click refresh, go to subnets, and here it is. We've got 3 subnets created for each site. Now we can go ahead and assign domain controllers to sites. So we need to assign each domain controller to its proper site. So I'll locate the server object. Let's go to Central India first, go to expand servers, and as you can see, we don't have any servers here. So now all our domain controllers are located in default first site name. So let's expand it, go to servers, find mumdc1, here it is, right click it, and select move. And we'll move it to Central India 01 site object. And we'll do the same for mumdc2. We'll click move, select Central India 01. Now it's our Central India site object is populated with 2 servers, mumdc1 and mumdc2. Let's try to move the servers with the help of PowerShell. For this we've got a command move-ad directory server. Now we'll need to specify identity, for example ams-dc1, and we'll need to specify site, which is West Europe 01 in double quotes. And it's done like as fast as second or two. And we'll repeat this step for DC2, AMS DC2, and we'll do the same for LON DC2, but we'll move it to UK W01. And we'll do the same for LON DC1. Let's double check it in our GUI window.